Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts, because they have a huge problem, a gaping hole that's been blown right into the center of their defense, and how they choose to fix it in this upcoming NFL draft, well, it could define their entire season, and maybe even their future. Today, we are going to break down the two very different paths they could take, a choice that will absolutely set the tone for this team for years to come.
Hey, welcome to NFL Nexus. If you're like me and you totally geek out on the strategy and the chess match of the NFL draft, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and give this explainer a like. I'm definitely going to want your opinion at the end of all this, so get ready to jump into the comments and tell me what you think.
All right, so here's our game plan. First up, we're going to look at just how big this gaping hole in the Colts defense really is. Then we'll get into the candidates. We've got the Day 2 prospect, Anthony Hill Jr., and we'll do a deep dive on him. After that, we'll talk about the Day 3 sleeper, Jaden Duggar, and his whole story. And finally, we'll lay out the massive decision facing general manager Chris Ballard.
So, Section 1, a gaping hole. And I want to be really clear. I am not being dramatic here. The Colts are in a legitimate crisis after losing their captain. This is so much more than just filling a spot on the depth chart. It's about finding a new heartbeat for that entire unit.
And the guy who left that hole? Zaire Franklin. I mean, just think about his story for a second. This was a 7th-round pick, a guy nobody expected much from, who clawed his way up to become a team captain, a Pro Bowler, the whole shebang. For 8 seasons, he was the guy with the green dot in his helmet, the quarterback of the defense. You just don't find that kind of leadership and respect on the waiver wire.
So when the Colts traded Franklin to the Packers, it created this massive gap because it was really like losing 3 players in one. First, you lose your leading tackler, a guy who was just a magnet for the football. Second, you lose your on-field coach, the central processor for the whole defense. And third, you lose a pillar in that locker room. That puts a ton of pressure on this draft to find not just a good player, but a new anchor for the entire defense.
So who's left to pick up the pieces? Well, take a look. The current linebacker room is dangerously thin. You've got Akeem Davis-Gaither, who's a solid vet, but after that, it's a collection of unproven guys and special teamers. There is nobody on this roster right now who is ready to step into Franklin's shoes as a leader and a 3-down force. This makes the need in the draft not just a priority, it's an absolute emergency.
Okay, so that brings us to the first potential solution, the Day 2 prospect. This is kind of the conventional answer, right? The safe, logical bet to solve the Colts' problem. Texas linebacker Anthony Hill Jr.
And according to Mel Kiper Jr., you got to remember that just last summer, people were talking about Anthony Hill Jr. as a potential top 10 pick in the entire draft. Let that sink in. Yeah, he had a bit of an uneven season at Texas, and his stock slid a little, but that is exactly why a player with his kind of first-round talent is suddenly sitting there for the Colts on Day 2 with pick number 47. This is a massive opportunity.
And just look at the physical tools. I mean, he is built like a prototypical middle linebacker. 6'2", 238 pounds. He's got that thick, sturdy frame you need to take on offensive linemen, but then he runs a blazing 4.5 140. For a dude that big, that is flying. That speed means he can go sideline to track down a running back, but he can also turn and run with a fast tight end down the seam. He's an absolute top-tier athlete for the position.
Okay, Section 3. Let's do a deep dive on Anthony Hill Jr. We know he looks the part. He's got the athletic profile. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to look at his elite production and the potential red flags that have him available in the second round in the first place.
Let's start with this number right here, 250. That's his total tackle count since 2023. And remember, this isn't against some cupcake schedule. This is in the SEC, the toughest conference in college football, week in and week out. Getting 250 tackles there shows you so much more than just good instincts. It means he can diagnose plays, he can fight through the trash, he can shed blocks from guys who will be playing on Sundays, and he finishes plays. He's just always around the football.
And then there's the versatility. 17 sacks since 2023. For an off-ball linebacker, that number is insane. It tells you he's not just some 2-down run stuffer. No, he is a legit weapon as a pass rusher. And for the Colts, who lost some guys on the edge, that's a huge bonus. You can use him on blitzes, you can send him up the A-gap. That kind of skill is a force multiplier for a defensive coordinator.
And finally this one. 8 forced fumbles. This is the playmaker gene. This shows he isn't just trying to make the tackle. He is actively trying to take the ball away on every single snap. He plays with a certain violence, always punching at the football. That knack for creating turnovers, you can't always coach that. It's an invaluable trait at the next level.
So, let's recap. We've got an athletic freak from the SEC who is super productive and a versatile playmaker. Sounds like a can't-mess first-round pick, right? So what's the catch? What's the one thing that's making teams hesitate and pushing him down the draft board? What is the weakness? And here it is, his pass coverage. According to Pro Football Focus, Hill got a coverage grade of just 63.6 last season. Now, to put that in perspective, that ranked him 359th out of more than 800 linebackers. For a Colts team that already got shredded over the middle of the field last year, this isn't just a concern. It is a massive, flashing red flag in today's NFL.
Now look, as this quote says, PFF grades aren't the be-all and end-all. No GM is making a pick based on one number. But what these grades do is act like a big arrow pointing you to where you need to look closer on the film. And for Hill, the tape probably shows what the grade suggests. Maybe he's a little slow recognizing routes, a little stiff in the hips when he has to turn and run. The Colts would be making a bet that his crazy athleticism means they can coach him up. It's a calculated risk, for sure.
So that's the safe option, the high floor guy. But what if the Colts want to take a bigger swing for a much bigger home run? Well, that brings us to Section 4, the Day 3 sleeper. It's time to meet the guy who just screams Chris Ballard special, all about that high-risk, high-reward upside.
So, meet Jaden Duggar. He's a linebacker from Louisiana, and the consensus big board has him ranked way down at number 325. So why are we even talking about him? Because of that last line. The Colts used one of their precious, limited top 30 pre-draft visits on him. And let me tell you, teams do not waste those visits. That means their private grade on Duggar is way higher than what the public thinks. They see something special.
And this is what they see. I mean, these measurements are almost cartoonish. He's a giant at 6'5", 242 pounds. But the really wild number is the 35-inch arm length. That is offensive tackle length on a linebacker. On the field, that gives him a ridiculous tackle radius. It means he can keep offensive linemen off his body. You cannot teach that kind of frame. It's a true unicorn profile.
So you're probably asking, if this guy is such a physical freak, why is he a Day 3 pick? Well, that brings us to our next section, Jaden Duggar, the project. His story isn't a straight line. It's this incredible journey that saw him start on offense and end up as the heart of a defense.
His path tells you everything you need to know about how raw he is, but also how high his ceiling might be. He started out as a zero-star wide receiver. Then they moved him to safety. Then he transferred up a level of competition, from Georgetown to Louisiana. It was only then that he finally found his true home at linebacker and just exploded. Every step shows he can adapt and learn incredibly fast, which suggests his potential is through the roof.
And don't get it twisted. When I say project, I don't mean he couldn't play. The second they put him in the right spot for his senior year, the dude put up huge numbers. 125 total tackles, and he led the entire Sun Belt Conference with 64 solo tackles. So once he was settled, he wasn't just good, he was one of the most productive defenders in his conference. The athletic traits were already turning into real on-field results.
And I love this quote from Duggar himself. When they asked him about changing positions, he said the hardest part wasn't the physical stuff. It was learning how to be a leader for the defense. That kind of self-awareness is a massive green flag for a young player. It shows he gets it. He knows that playing middle linebacker is about more than just making tackles. It's about communication and earning the trust of your teammates.
But look, for any small school guy, the biggest question is always, yeah, but can he do it against top competition? Well, Duggar answered that question loud and clear at the East-West Shrine Bowl. He didn't just hold his own against players from the big Power 5 schools, he dominated. He was named the best player at the whole event. He proved that his unique traits in production weren't a fluke. They're real and they translate.
And that leads us to our final section, Ballard's big decision. This is so much more than a choice between two players. This is a choice between two totally different team-building philosophies, and it's a decision that is going to shape the future of the Indianapolis Colts defense for a long time.
So let's break it down one last time, because the choice couldn't be more different. With Anthony Hill Jr., you're spending a premium Day 2 pick. He's the known commodity. He's got years of high-level production in the best conference in football. You know he can play. But you also know he has a big, glaring hole in his game with pass coverage. On the other hand, Jaden Duggar is the mystery box. You're using a late-round pick on a raw project whose biggest strength is his one-of-a-kind athletic profile. The question is, can you coach him up to reach that incredible potential? It really comes down to this, the safe, proven product versus the lottery ticket with a potentially massive payout.
You know, we absolutely love going this deep on these draft prospects, and if you do too, a really great way to support us here at NFL Nexus is by checking out our coloring books. Seriously, they're perfect for fans of any age. For your kids, your grandkids, or hey, even for you. You can scan the QR code right there on the screen or just hit the link in the description. Your support is what allows us to keep making these deep dive explainers.
And that brings us to the final question, and I'm turning this one over to you. You're Chris Ballard for a day.
You have all the reports, you know how desperate the need is. So what do? Do you take the safe pick in Anthony Hill Jr., the SEC stud with the big coverage questions? Or do you roll the dice on the sleeper, Jaden Duggar, the athletic freak who could be a superstar or could be out of the league in 3 years? Get down in the comments right now. I want to know, who would you draft for the Colts? And tell me why. I can't wait to see your arguments. Thanks for watching.